Nintendo versus Yuzu. Who's right and who's wrong in this situation? Has gaming and gamers as a culture, is it about to implode upon itself? We're going to talk about that and so much more in the latest episode of Decked Up, a gaming and tech podcast. But wait, we're not alone in this episode. We're joined by a very special guest, none other than Moses, aka the Well-Red Mage. Let's go ahead and get into it. Aloha everyone, this is Mikhail Casanova, host of Decked Up, a Gaming Tech Podcast, and we are joined today with a very, very special guest, great friend of the show, the one and only Moses, aka the Well-Red Mage. Moses, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, sir? Thanks for inviting me back onto your show. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. I love talking to you. We talk a lot outside of this, and you have a phenomenal. Actually, before we even go into anything, talk about your channel. This is your show right now.
Oh, okay. Hey, so thanks, man. We just launched a new channel. I mentioned it like as a tease the last time I was on your show, actually. So it's nice to kind of see it kind of all come to fruition. But it's Gamelogica, Game Logica on YouTube, one word. And what we're doing is exploring mythology and theology in video games. That's my education background, so I finally get to use my degree for something. But it's fun exploring world myths. Yeah. So, and that's really kind of impressed upon me as I work on this next video, which is going to be called something like The Real Secret of Mana. To talk about Polynesian myths and a little bit of Hawaiian history, because that's where that term mana comes from. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people either know that, and if they do, I don't think they appreciate that. There is a specific cultural backdrop to that that I think is really meaningful. And then I guess I get to tell like a cool story about King Kamehameha, like drinking his cousin's mana when he kills him. It's just, cool like war stories and stuff like that. So but yeah, check it out. There's a couple of documentaries on there. There's one on Red Mages, there's one on Kate Sith since Rebirth just came out. I've been really just encouraged by a lot of the warm reception that it's got. But it is a brand new channel. It needs everybody's support. So please go check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, complain about my voice, whatever you got to do. Like one guy, there was one comment, I think he removed it. There was one comment that was like really bad. I was like, I can't help the way that I sound. It's just the way that I sound. Like, it's, you're born like a cartoon character. That's just the voice that you have. And that's all there is to it, So just got to lean into it. But yeah, thanks for, and I got to say too, thank you, Mikhail. I mean, you've been a great support. And also you have a voice cameo on this upcoming video. I don't have a finished date as to when that'll be out, but folks that listen to this show, definitely keep an eye out for Mr. Casanova's cameo. I'm not going to say who, but it is a royal read, let's say. There's the tease for it.
There we go. And we'll have links to everything in the description below. So make sure, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, or you're listening to it on whatever outlet, the links for everything is going to be down in the description below. So we're going to talk today. And we're not experts. We got to give full disclosures. We may be armchair analysts, but we're not actual analysts in in these executive meetings and whatnot. But we want to talk about and try to bring some clarity to the situation with Nintendo versus Yuzu / Citra. And because a lot of people seem to think Nintendo's a bad guy for suing and demanding payment for damages to what has happened to their intellectual properties. So let's we're gonna go ahead and go into that, but I definitely want to get your thoughts on this before we deep dive.
Oh, I've got thoughts, and actually I'm a lawyer too, so it's perfect. No, just kidding. So it was a weird story to watch kind of break, wasn't it? Because you'd seen it coming for a while. You know, Nintendo. If you know anything about Nintendo history, they've been suing people's butts off for
Yep.
generations, literally. You know, going way back to the NES days, just suing everybody left and right. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. So a Switch emulator, um, there's always those comments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is to appease those people right here. You make a distinction, right, between emulation and piracy. Okay, a lot of people are keen to make that observation, and they're right. Okay, an emulator, but just existing in and of itself is not illegal, right? Piracy is when you take somebody else's property and don't pay them for it and use it yourself. Whether that's a pirated VHS out of somebody's trunk at Walmart, to flash back to 20 years ago, or that's getting, you know, a ROM distributed to you that for a game that you didn't pay for, especially one that's available currently at a Walmart. If you go there and buy it, they got it. I got it. Okay. There's gray areas, like people are like, well, you know, if it's buying it from somebody off eBay, the developers aren't making any money. I get that. Okay. But we're not talking about games from 30 years ago. We're not, we're talking about the Nintendo Switch. It's available now. A third clarifier: emulation, piracy, preservation. I'm not really convinced that you getting an illegal ROM for a Switch game is preservation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not convinced that that's the case. If this was 30 years, 20 years after the Switch, sure, that's a discussion. Um but really, like I was saying, you know, with how weird of a story this was, we saw it coming. You know, when it happened, the immediate fist shakers at Nintendo. Curse you, Nintendo, for striking down our preservation. You know, and all the pearl clutching and the righteous indignation that was out there. You know what I'm talking about on social media. But then more came out, right?
Yeah.
More stories came out. You know, more details came out, and it turns out Yuzu was not really Robin Hood. They were Prince John.
Mm-hmm.
they were they were, you know, paywalling things. They were definitely making money hand over fist off of pirated software. Some of it released pre-official
Mm-hmm.
release. You know, responsible for leaks and things like that. Do you recall, Mikkel? Want to say, you know, at least a year or so ago, uh, and previous to that, even there were, you know, when a big game would come out a couple days early, we'd see footage magically appear on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and it would look like it was running like crap, like they were playing it on a potato. And those were Yuzu
Mm-hmm.
builds. They were like, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, look at Pokemon Scarlet." I mean, I played Pokemon Scarlet. I didn't see a single octopus child riding a bicycle. I didn't. I saw some glitches. Yeah, it doesn't run the best, but it did not run like it was like a Mickey Mouse cartoon. It was same thing with the Sonic Colors game,
Yep.
Tears of the Kingdom, things like that. Turns out we were being duped
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. So obviously I want to collect your thoughts here now too. I see I'm a podcast host myself, so I'm used to this. So I think I just keep talking. So yeah, your turn. What do you think about this whole thing?
I think everything you're saying is absolutely true because I remember all of that, especially the Sonic Colors thing, because I got a lot of because I reviewed that game on the Switch, and I
Uh-huh.
got a lot of people that came for they came for the jugular. They were like, "Oh, you're just paid by Sega. They gave you footage to make sure it doesn't."
Oh
I
yeah.
live streamed the game for 5 hours straight, no issues whatsoever. People still didn't believe it because we're in this age of sensationalization, you know, where when it comes to journalism or reporting news, it's not about reporting actual facts anymore. It's about how can you rile people up to click on your site, your channel, whatever it is. That's why we have people with the thumbnails of the, you know, like they've seen the biggest dildo they've ever seen in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It is an emotional
Yeah.
controversy, essentially. Because if you're mad at the man, and in this case, the man is a big billion-dollar Japanese company that is perceived as this juggernaut that just can kind of steamroll over
Mhm.
everybody. If you're mad at that, then there's no really rational conversation to be had. And so, still, even though all this information has come out, even though the tweet that really blew my mind was from Hikiko Mori Media,
Yeah.
um, right, and that revealed that they had a ROM stash on their Discord. Nintendo ninjas had infiltrated it, which is also kind of funny because people online are now like, you know, if you have an emulator, don't say anything because Nintendo will find out. It's like, don't give yourself too much credit, man. I mean, Nintendo will find out, even if you're not online gloating about pirated software that you didn't have to pay for. But on top of that, Yuzu was running telemetry in the background, collecting anonymous data on users. It was basically a criminal ring. It was the godfather of, this was the mafia of emulation. This was not a hero standing up against, you know, the man. That is not the narrative here.
No.
There are some people who will hear that and be like, hey man, well, you know, Mario's not going to kiss you on the mouth. Again, it's an emotional argument for a lot of people. I get it.
I mean, what we're looking at, like with them collecting data, what that's no different than the constant, you know, threats of shutting down TikTok in the US. It's the same thing. They're collecting information without disclosing that they are, you know. And here's the like diving further into that, they were making six figures a month from
Yeah.
Patreon.
That was around Tears of the Kingdom time,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and it's like, and here's the thing, I was in that Discord, I got to see a lot of stuff. I'm seeing how they're backtracking now.
Oh, I
It
bet
is
now,
like
yeah.
I had to screenshot something. I'll probably throw it up later on in the post edited video. But no, the it's wild. It's wild. And it's and
You gotta think, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? You know how easy it is to get into a Discord? One. And then you're making six figures. Somebody told me they were making over $1 million around Tears of the Kingdom time per month through
jeez.
Patreon. It's just, that's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
And not only them, but like I saw updates from that Emu deck. So that's the group that if you have a Steam deck, is kind of like the central hub for all your emulators and everything like that. Like they had to make an announcement about that stuff too. They're like, hey, yeah, we can't actually support that within it. And that's another group that was putting their emulators behind a paywall. And okay, this needs to be a lesson to anyone out here, whether you watch or listen to this, whatever. If you're going to do emulation, none of us really care about that. You know, if you legally, if you physically own or you digitally own it, or you paid for it, then yeah, you can emulate it by law. When you don't own it and it's readily available, you're going into that gray area. Now, if it's something like, say, let me grab this. The original, I mean, you
Yes.
know,
Is that X2?
X2, yes,
Right.
sir.
Here, we just to be
You know,
buddies today.
you know,
Yes. You know, if you're emulating this, who cares? You
you
know?
know,
Now look, they're gonna release, Capcom's gonna release
yeah,
collections. My opinion is support retro collections
yes,
because that's kind of like, you know, real preservation. Like they're bringing it out for a new generation, you know, and people will be like, ah, it's too vanilla. They didn't add, you know, like a Steam running boss rush online MOBA mode, and that would have been worth it. So I'm not going to support it. I'll just save my money and be a cheapskate. No, support the release because these are the people who can make new Mega Man games. I'm sorry if that's
Oh
spicy.
no.
I don't know. You see, you're like, I didn't know what I was inviting on this show. But look, the point that you're making is excellent, right? That game's from
3?
96 or 98 or yeah,
Yeah.
93. Yeah. Super long time ago.
You know, I got
But
one even better that you have no way of
go
playing
ahead.
other than emulation, or you're gonna shell out a lot of money. Let me grab it. It
Yeah.
is
Or just bring on like an arcade machine right now. Is that what you gonna do? Like,
there you go.
oh yeah. That thing's like $500 or something like that.
And it was
Kudelka.
never
Yeah.
re-released.
Yeah.
Ever.
There you go. There
So
you go.
I don't think Slacknoff cares whether or not you emulate that. Because, you know, are you going to spend $500 on that game? Story's great, gameplay is shit. No, don't spend money on that unless you've already had it and you've been sitting on it for 20 something years, like I've been with this one. Oh my god, 25 years I've been sitting on this one. Anyway,
Oof.
but like if that's the case, you can make the argument for it. But if it's like Tears of the Kingdom, which is right here that you can buy.
Now here's where another artificial narrative comes from. Nintendo games never go on sale. Have you heard that before? I'm sure you have.
Yes.
Nintendo games never go on sale. I talked through that with somebody once, and this was a rational person, so you could have that conversation. Most people will just block you if you dare question, you know, the commandment, thou shalt not buy Nintendo games. But it was turned out what he meant by Nintendo games never go on sale is he meant brand new Nintendo games purchased directly from Nintendo's storefronts for Switch games never see a sale of greater than 30% off. That's what Nintendo games never go on sale actually means.
Ah.
Because when he said Nintendo games never go on sale, I just went to, you know, Walmart's getting a lot of mention on this episode, so I'll mention something. I went to GameStop online,
Mm.
right? You could pull up a bunch of Nintendo games that are indeed on sale. Now, they're not at the dramatic levels of sales that other companies' games go to. Some of these games are like practically free, like the next year. I think when I bought Bloodborne, it was like $6.99
Mhm.
on a Black Friday. So you can get that stuff really cheap. Now there's a conversation to be had there. You know, does Nintendo overvalue their products, or do they fairly value their products? That's a conversation to be had. But the online narratives, I think, are a little too black and white, and they don't leave a lot of room for nuance, which is really what you need here with this Yuzu topic,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and we like I've heard that narrative for so long, and it really blows my mind because like nobody really goes into the context of what that means. And I'm glad you gave us that context because you look at they have a deal section on the eShop or the Switch shop. It's they constantly have deals, new games, you know, old games. It's kind of a chore trying to go through it, especially as slow as it loads because Nintendo, what are you doing?
It's a crappy eShop. Yeah.
It
S shop, whatever it is.
sucks.
Yeah.
But there are sales. There are times when new games do go on sales. A lot of their games that are first party do go on sale, but yeah, it's never really lower than 30% at times. However, you look at other companies, like, okay, I just reviewed Persona 3 Reload. In about maybe, okay, maybe 4 to 5 months for that game is going to be like $20 or $30 or less because the depreciating value for other companies on their title, they want that initial hit and then they don't care. Nintendo knows you're gonna keep buying Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That game has been around since what, 2013, bro? And it's still going. You know, they know that, okay, yeah, you're gonna buy Tears of the Kingdom, but you're probably gonna buy Skyward Sword HD. You're probably gonna buy what is it, Link's Awakening remake. You're probably gonna buy Breath of the Wild. And they're gonna hold their value because Nintendo knows that people will buy it, even if it's a slight discount. They're gonna buy it. They're gonna hold, and they're gonna continue to collect. What, we're 7 years or so, 7.5 years into the Switch's life, and Breath of the Wild still $59, or well, yeah, $59, and then occasionally will go on sale for like 40 something. But people are still buying it.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right. And there may be a design philosophy there as well, because so many of the other competitors will emphasize the cutting edge graphics, the best you can get at the
mm-hmm.
time. Obviously, we're talking AAA,
Yeah.
right? In that context, and so in doing so, you know, technology continues to advance, and eventually, what you see is something that is, you know, 7 years old on Sony is going to have a specific gap of visual. I want to be careful with my words here. Is going to have a specific gap of maybe visual depreciation or something like that compared to a new AAA that comes out on those
Mm-hmm.
libraries. With Nintendo, like Tears of the Kingdom really doesn't look that much different from Breath of the Wild. Um, you know, like uh there's still new games that will come out for that system that look like they could have come out really in the early years of the Nintendo Switch, but that's because of the specific design choice to not design for the best possible, most realistic cinematic graphics. And I think that is maybe perhaps part of the whole notion that Nintendo's games carry value for longer, or that they want people to perceive maybe more accurately that they carry value for
Yeah.
longer. But I don't know. I don't work for Nintendo, so I can't tell you for sure. That's just a
You know,
guess.
and I also want to bring up too, like the fact that when we look at how, I'm trying to say this as politically correct as I can. I'm just like, you know, there's always going to be people upset when
Mm-hmm.
you are making an emulator and then you decide that you're going to have sections for code distributions. Like I've seen it. They take you to I think it's Zip Porto or Zipperto or whatever it is. These different what is it, Mega Share and all these different file hosting sites. If you have sections like that in your Discord, and your Discord is open to join, what do you expect to happen? Like, you're collecting money and you're distributing. But Nintendo's the bad guy, and they're
Right, right, right.
just
Yeah. You know, a lot of people will still, you know, say, well, emulation is not illegal. And I'll tell them, like, you're right, but also that's not even the context here. The context here is that they were distributing illegal, you know, property. They were distributing illegal intellectual property, illegal software, um, and making a lot of money off of it. We just saw, gosh, what was the name of it? This is like maybe 2-3 years
Mhm.
back. Nintendo went after a website, right? That was hosting ROMs.
Oh,
You know, and people
yeah.
threw, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What was the name
What
of
was
that
it,
site?
ROM Hustler? It's
I don't
either
know.
that or, and I know there's like less sites now than before.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure some go down without any of like the big media fanfare, you know, that we'll see sometimes from a shutdown. But I remember that one in particular. At first, we are kind of like, it's a jerk move, Nintendo. Screw you guys. Yeah, if I want to emulate Mega Man X, why? What do you
Mm-hmm.
care? And then it turns out that yeah, they were profiteering off of piracy, and it wasn't just Super Nintendo. It was a whole bunch of crap.
Yep.
So earlier in the conversation, you mentioned Citra,
Yeah.
3DS,
Yep.
right? And collateral damage is really what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like. I don't think that there's many. I can't see personally an angle in which that makes me feel good. Not that this is about me feeling good, obviously, but it doesn't feel good for like a 3DS emulator to go down.
Yeah.
Considering this discontinued and the eShop's fate and all that stuff. Um, but I blame that more on Yuzu for having that shut
Yeah.
down because they were the ones who decided to cross so many lines. So if they hadn't crossed those lines, we still would have had this thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, another angle, another detail is Yuzu's not the only Switch emulator out there.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, they're the only Switch emulator group that was doing all these things that Yuzu was doing. But people will ask, why didn't Nintendo care about those other ones? It's like maybe because they weren't doing some straight up Godfather crap in their discords. Maybe just maybe. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's a multifaceted issue that black and white statements and people trying to get dunks in on social media
Yeah.
don't do the best service to, in my
No,
opinion.
they don't. And I remember there was, I believe, Nintendo had a bit of I'm just gonna say a kerfuffle with Valve back when the Steam Deck came out because they had at one point showcased one of I think it was the Yuzu emulator in one of their videos, and they quickly took it down and they changed it and got rid of it because you don't and that remember because the Steam Deck was supposed to be the Switch killer, and yeah.
Every time. And a lot of that's stupid like rage clicks and stuff like that from the media. It's hilarious. Though, what's funny is I don't want to go on a tirade about Deck Bros. God bless them.
Oh,
But
I
every
could.
once in a
I want you to because
every
they hate me.
oh man, I'm pretty sure they hate everybody that's not a Steam Deck. No, I'm just kidding. I know a bunch of Steam Deck users and they're great. I think once you clarify, Steam Deck Bros
Mhm.
are PC gamers who want to treat their little Steam Deck or Switch knockoff like they're in the console wars all of a sudden. When it's like you made what, like 1% of the Switch's lifetime sales in a year? I don't think that's the Switch killer, brother. I really don't. And they'll be like, it's so convenient. It's so convenient. All you do is you just pirate everything. It's so convenient. And I always tell them, you know what? Just picture Christmas morning. Little Johnny there opening up his presents. What the heck is this? It's a Steam Deck. It's not a Nintendo Switch. It's a Steam Deck. Daddy, I want to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Well, we're just going to have to set up Yuzu. And then he spends the rest of the day trying to set up this software. And it's the hassle,
Yeah.
right, of setting it up. Now, little Johnny's not going to know how to do that. Obviously, all you technical PC gamers out there, you know how to do that. You have the technological know-how, the free time, the resources, all that to set up Yuzu and do your thing. But you cannot expect the average Nintendo consumer to do that.
No.
And that is how the Nintendo Switch made so many sales. Because of all the little Johnnies in the world and all the grandma Josephines in the world who bought it for them. And they're not going to set up an emulator. They're just not.
No. And it's one of the things because I used to do setup guides for emulation on Steam Deck and all that. I stopped doing that. Not because I'm trying to work with Nintendo, because I'm not, but because as a parent who games, you really don't, you have such small windows of time to game. And if I'm spending that minuscule time I have trying to get this freaking emulator to work because I got to get the right proton, the right whatever to get this thing to run, and then that might have an issue that will make it crash, it's not worth it. It's not. And then also, what happens if you want to play the games online? A lot of people don't realize that every Nintendo game that is printed and digitally distributed has a ID number, a UID on it. So if you go online on the Steam Deck, so however you do it, PC gamers, you guys know, however you go online and play it. I know I'm a PC gamer, but I'm just like, I don't want to associate with y'all. But you know, you go online with that, or if you get that other thing that I don't know if you've heard of MIG switch, because that was a big thing. That's that multi R4 DS type thing that's out for the Switch.
Yeah, once you start getting into like the numbers and letters game, then I'm just like, I just want to shoot robots, you guys.
Yeah, right. So like people that's like it's a Nintendo Switch cart. It's kind of like the that multi cart for the DS, and basically you put it in and it allows you to play your ROM and ISO files. The problem with that, and I discussed it, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you're defending Nintendo." I'm like, if you put that in your Switch and you go online and you give your physical copy of the game that you ripped it from, or however you got it, and they're online, somebody's going to get blocked or banned or their account deleted, which might be both of you because that's unique signature is going to check on their system. So I understand a
Wow.
lot of y'all want to do emulation, you want to back up, and there is a conversation about preservation in gaming, and especially how companies now are not doing that. We're seeing so many games, and especially with the pivot towards live service games and the damage that that's doing to the gaming industry as a whole. The gaming industry is crumbling.
Yeah, it felt like we're watching a slow motion crash
Yeah,
so far this year. What is it?
yeah.
March? And we're just like seeing everything shut down and everything lay off people. Um and it's just crazy. Did you see that hard drive headline? Gosh, what
To the
was it? It
PS2.
was like Yuzu shuts
Oh,
down.
no, no.
No, it was Yuzu. Yeah, they were like Yuzu shuts down to emulate the gaming industry, and I was like, that's pretty funny. No, yeah, yeah, it definitely feels that way. It's not the same kind of crash like the North American crash, around the Atari days,
Yeah,
but it definitely feels like we were chatting before, that things are unsustainable.
yeah,
A question that I would ask previously was, at what point are games too big? At what point are they too big, as in too expensive, too time consuming to develop, um, just too
yeah,
much? And I think we're kind of seeing the answer to that question now. Where big companies, I don't want to say any names, but their initials are Square Enix, uh, shutting down brand new
you
games,
know how I feel about
that
them.
that took years to develop, closing down pretty quickly. That's a big cutting your losses type situation. So I and again, I don't consider myself an industry analyst. Um, I think it's fun to think about, from the sidelines. I'm just glad I don't have any money in
Yeah.
this, you know, because I'd be losing I'd be losing my investments in a lot of these situations.
So I want to ask a question. It's off topic, but it's actually connected to what we're talking about. You know, do you feel the gamers now care less about actually playing games that are fun and more about the rumors and the bullshit of the industry than ever before?
Hmm. I like that question. It's actually something that I've been thinking about a lot, and talking to a couple people about. I think that we have a really entrenched hype culture,
Hmm.
and that overlaps with a lot of things that you mentioned, right? Is rumors, leaks. Let me tell you a short story. So, a year or so ago, I was just really kind of getting fed up with hype culture, and obviously, there's nothing I can personally do about it.
Mhm.
But it'll always be like, "Hey, rumor, there's a new thing. Get excited for this thing because I told you." I was like, "Yeah, you got any pictures or video or literally anything?" And they'd be like, "No, just get excited. Just live in a constant state of rumor induced excitement." Like my kidney can't take it. Uh, but I decided to falsify a rumor.
Mhm.
And I said, uh, rumor, all caps. You got to put it in all caps so people know it's a rumor.
Mhm.
Um, and I said, Vagrant Story HD remake coming, or Vagrant Story HD Evilise collection coming, something like that. And that's it. Now, that was on Twitter. In Discord, the night before, I said I was going to do it. So I had proof that it was not a rumor and it was time stamped. So a couple people knew. What happened is that tweet blew up.
Mhm.
Why did it blow up? Because of hype culture. People are hungry for gossip and rumors and leaks. Doesn't matter if you can't verify them. Doesn't matter if they're real or
Mhm.
not. I got the clicks for their hype. Now, if I was running a website that did that, I would get money for their hype. How do you think this industry's media works? It works because we are giving hype clicks to people for some things that indeed can probably be justified and clarified and they're real. Okay. But a huge ton of things have not been real. How many times have we heard that there's going to be a Switch Pro coming out this Christmas? Like 4 years in a row? And it hasn't happened. You know why? Because that's a fake rumor, but Kotaku already got your click. Doesn't matter.
Super Metal
Doesn't
Dave
matter.
64 got your click on YouTube, and he's
I don't know who that is, but they already got your click. That's what matters. So I revealed that the Vagrant Story thing was fake because what happened is some journalists started to comment on it and started to retweet it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut this off before it starts going to websites the next day because I don't want it to escalate to that level. It's already proved the point, right? Obviously a part of me was like, I just wanted this just to go on forever and see what happens. But and I could get famous doing that too.
Mhm.
There are people who are prophets in the industry who will tell us when a Nintendo Direct is coming, when a Switch Pro is coming, when a remake for a game that we won't see for like 10 years is right on the horizon. And they're the ones making money off of your hype. So I try to encourage people to guard your emotions a little better and just be skeptical. A skepticism online is one of the most healthy things you can bring to the internet. And if you choose not to do that, then yeah, you're going to fly into a rage over something that never existed in the first place. And a small handful of people were pissed off when they found out that that rumor was fake. They're pissed off because they fell for it. If they hadn't have fallen for it, if they hadn't have so freely made their own emotions slave to a hype culture, they wouldn't have been pissed off. I'm glad that some people saw that point,
Mhm.
though. Some people were like, you know what? I think I'm not gonna get so overhyped next time. So, uh, I don't even remember your initial question now. But yeah, if it was like, what do I think about like leaks and rumors and all that sort of thing? I think that's it. I think that we're so desperate for we're starving for excitement, it feels like, which is kind of bizarre because like we've got more access to entertainment at our fingertips right this very second than at any time previous in human history. And it's just nuts how much we can access, and yet we're constantly starving for, oh my gosh, this is coming out. I'll literally drop all other of the 100 games that I bought this year just to play this one game. Oh my gosh, that's coming out. I'll drop all the games that I bought day one and that are sitting on my shelf just so I can play that one. You're lying to yourself. You're not going to play that. But it's not really about playing the game anymore.
No.
That I think was your
Yeah.
It's about that feeling of excitement. And as long as the gaming industry can do that, then we're not going to get to any discussion of the sort of things that I like, which is a discussion of intrinsic quality.
Yeah.
Um, and people will get irritated with me on that too. Like, well, who decides quality? I'm like, we do.
Mhm.
We've always done that. That's human to do that. But we can't get there if all you need is that little adrenaline push from a commercial.
Yeah. It's really crazy when you sit and think about how, like, the way gaming is now, how, and I will say this, you don't have to agree with me. No one has to agree with this, but I feel like the gaming industry right now, a lot of game developers are creatively bankrupt, and we have all this tech to bring all this stuff to life. And it's like, a lot of it's not as great as something that had chip tunes and pixel artwork from before, when they had these limitations, these grand ambitious, we want this story. Here's our storyboard. Here's the scenario. But we need to make that game impactful and make people want it with pixels and chip tunes. Now we can make all these real life things. I mean, we've seen how, like, Unreal Engine can just make things look amazing, but we're still using the same formulaic stuff that, the industry's been doing since the PlayStation 3 360 era. It hasn't really evolved. It's just more of the same. And I don't know, like, I just feel like now, with the way gamers are, it's literally like you said, it's more about the hype than anything else. I see people hyping, they were hyping up Rebirth, hyping up, it's the greatest thing ever. It's da 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 da, blah blah blah. Square Enix, like, yeah, get into Final Fantasy, play Rebirth. You don't need to play Remake. You don't need to play the OG. Just do all this other stuff. And, like, the minute the game's out, after 1 to 2 weeks, people move on. They don't care anymore. The FOMO, this or fear of missing out, for those who don't know what FOMO means, is,
Somebody just thought you dropped a slur right there. They were like,
FOMO. What?
No, yeah, fear of missing out.
Yeah,
folks.
it's literally one of the worst things that I feel is just poisoning this industry, and it's poisoning gamers. I don't know how you feel about talking to other gamers, but, like, there used to be a point where you meet somebody else that was a gamer, you could talk to them about, oh man, did you play this? Did you discover that? And it was fun. Now it's like discussions about games. People be ready. It's like a civil war. It's just ridiculous now.
Yeah. You ever get death threats?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that so I've had a lot of discussion with people about this. Kind of tying into Gamelogica and studies there. A lot of people are behaving like religious zealots, essentially. Yeah. And they're ready to have a holy war over an entertainment product, a commercial work of art. Like, that's kind of, it's unhinged. And it's sad, really, because people should be able to develop a mature personhood, a personality, as they grow. But sometimes it doesn't get past, I like this one thing so much that I think I'm going to make this my personality. And so the difficulty with me as a critic is I will make a criticism, for good or ill, whatever, about this product, which is not a person, but the person who has made that their personality takes offense. So I've heard people excuse that. I've heard people say, well, it's just passion. I've heard people say, well, they're just fans. What do you expect? I've heard people say, I'm used to that in a religious context. And I think it's dangerous. Yeah. I think that we, as, there's so many things. We as a community, we as a consumer base, I mean, let's face it, the vast majority of us have nothing in common. We just buy the same products. That's it. And if that's enough to be something in common, then that's enough. But I'll say, as human beings, we should collectively stand against death threats and do what we can to ostracize extremists like that from pocket communities, whether that's a fandom, a Discord, a subreddit, whatever. That is behavior that should not be tolerated at all, should be reported. I'll get it every once in a while for making a joke about a fictional character. Nuts. Now you might say, well, that person can't do anything to me. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I had somebody call me on the phone. I don't know how they found my number.
I
But I'll tell you what, I locked down my social medias about as hardcore as I could.
yeah.
Just to make sure that people cannot find pictures of my
Yeah.
children, cannot find my personal information, because doxing
Yep.
happens. Like it's absolutely a real thing.
I
And we need to collectively stand against it.
I've had it happen to me. Which is why, like, I've had people ask, like, how come you don't really post about your family or anything like that? I'm like, it's because I've dealt with so much of this stuff. I've been doxxed. I've had people show up to my kids' school. I've had people show up to my partner's
Oh my god.
workplace. And, I've had people stalk us when we're out and about over opinions on video games and tech. And it's just at a point where
Yeah.
I don't feel that there's a need to put them at risk over that. It's just,
Right. Yeah. That freaking
yeah,
sucks. Okay, it does. And one reason why it sucks so much is because, like, you've got a family. I've got a family. I love talking about my family. My family is a huge part of my life. I love talking about my kids. I love sharing about, the gaming adventures that they have and that we have together, but you can't.
yeah,
The la I did that when my son beat Super Mario
I
RPG.
remember.
I mean, thank God the vast majority of people were kind and encouraging and awesome. But a couple people were like, how could you force your child to do this? They're going to hate you for it. What? What? Now that's obviously not a death threat,
Yeah,
but putting, pictures of your kids out there, talking about your family, it's a really, really tricky thing. I rarely do it for that reason, because if I'm already getting people sending me pictures of wrists being cut, which is one of the recent ones that I got in a DM, just endless, an endless vomit of graphic imagery. If I'm getting that, the guarantee they'll send that to
yeah,
children. They'll put that, and I don't need my kids to see
mm,
that. I don't know about, and however other people raise their children, but I know my children do not need to see the downright
yeah,
evil that some people have on display online. So it is really sad. I mean, as a parent gamer, I wish that there was more that I could share about my kids. Um, I would love to put videos together with them and podcasts with them. And there are some creators that do, and all the protection to them and their family. It's something that I just don't want to do.
yeah,
There's just too much. There's too much out there. So when you talk about the way that things have changed, yeah, and I think about that a lot, and I'm not sure how we can fix it or how we can get back to it, other than having our kind of splinter groups, having discussions like this between you and me. That's not, a public
yeah.
forum. So some rando can't show up and, say an ethnic slur or something like that, because yeah, it happens.
All right, man. So, with that being said, is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we go? Anything you want to plug, promote? Throw it all out there.
Oh man, I want to end on like a positive note. Somehow, I think it was a hard conversation in a lot of ways, whether it's Nintendo versus Yuzu or hype culture. I think that there are a lot of beautiful things in gaming to be excited about. For me, that excitement comes down to discussion of intrinsic quality. It's not a discussion that everybody wants to have. You're not an inferior, you know, enjoyer of video games if that's you. Um, the point that I wanted to make to a lot of people this week, past couple weeks, even in our Discord, is that people enjoy games
Yeah,
differently, and that's something to celebrate. It's something that is impressed upon me again with Gamelogica is we've got real diversity here. We've got real, different thoughts, different beliefs. My channel, I've said you don't have to be a religious to watch Gamelogica because it's not about that. I'm not preaching to you. I'm not. It's nothing like that. But we can celebrate ideas from other cultures. Obviously there are ideas out there that are harmful and dangerous and things like that, and that's not what the channel is going to be about. But there are ways that we can celebrate, other cultures. So, for example, on the Kate Sith episode, or Kachi, as some people want you to pronounce him, the Square Enix said Kate Sith. I'm going to keep saying Kate Sith. But on that episode, I reached out to people who are generally from the cultures in which those myths arose. So that video had Scottish and Welsh and Irish myths. So I reached out to some friends of mine who are from that area of the world. And that's why with this one now, as we're looking at Hawaii, it was important for me to connect with people from that area of the world. As one, I think that's respectful. It feels right to do that. But also it gets to celebrate different voices in the community. It gets to celebrate a lot of different voices. Like you said with Rebirth, anybody can say this game's a masterpiece, but what can somebody say? This is the kind of review that interests me. What can somebody say about it that nobody else can say about it? Maybe something to think about, content creators. Your unique perspective on some of these works is what's needed, because anybody can just slap a 10 on there and call it a day. But I think you probably have something more interesting to say than IGN if you're listening. Probably. I believe in you. And that's, there you go. That's a high note to end
That's
on.
kind of like the whole the Like a Dragon review I did from a Hawaiian's perspective, and it's like you have all these people that are like reviewing the game, like, oh, there's all these Hawaiians in it. This is so accurate, and I'm over here like,
do you understand the accuracy? Yeah.
I greatly appreciate the work that you do. It's always a joy talking to you, having you on the podcast. Always. We definitely got to do this more often. I actually want to ask one spicy question, and I want you to go on a
I
little
love spicy
rant
questions.
because I enjoy your
Okay.
rants. So, and this can go back into, the anti-Nintendo people, but what are your thoughts on this? I don't want to say it's a generation, but I'm just going to say generalize it. This generation of people, or gamers, fake gamers, I guess you could say, that want, because I just think if you're a gamer, you play a game, like you said, we all game differently. We all enjoy games differently. But the people that want Nintendo to crumble, they want Xbox to fail, and they want it to only be PlayStation or only be PC. I don't think people who have that mentality understand the tyranny that Nintendo had in the 80s and early 90s, and why that was not good for the industry, and how that ran off Square Enix, and how they were like, you will never work with us again, and how that worked. Like, what do you think of people that want this PlayStation only or PC only future for gaming?
Well, I'd tell them to read a freaking book, go and read 1984, man. It's hard because sometimes you talk to people who haven't lived yet, and they think like a good story is like they think like the best story ever told is like a AAA video game
The
one,
Last of
and
Us
it's like,
Part 2.
yeah, I like again, go and read a book,
Yeah.
Obviously some people just aren't readers. Obviously, don't take that literally. What I mean though is that there's a lot of good arguments and works of art examining why a monopoly is not a good thing.
Yeah.
This is actually why I like console wars so much. Because they're fun. The memes are incredible.
Mhm.
I wish we could have Um, Obviously, I don't care for a lot of people conflate console wars with people online who will call you all manner of names because they like this brand and you like this brand. That's just petty squabbling.
Mhm.
That's not what I'm talking about. Console wars is when two companies who own the consoles are having a war. They're basically rivals. Now, whatever the little fanboys want to do, with shouting names at each other across the playground, that's up to them. But console wars, as far as competition between two companies, is great. I'm not a huge Sega fan, but I'll tell you, the most exciting console war of all time was Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo. Um, it gave us some incredible libraries
Mhm.
on both sides. I'll say it, and then too, it launched into an even greater set of wars, not just between 1v1, but then we had, PlayStation enters the mix,
Mhm.
then Xbox enters the mix. And Sega's like, I'm out of here, you guys. This is getting too serious. But all that, the 90s to me was so exciting because everybody's trying to one up the other person. Everybody's trying to, take all these risks and things like that. Everybody's trying to move forward in their new ways, try out new design philosophies and things like that. I think if we just had PC, we would just see, less choice. We would see less options. We would see less creativity. And I don't think that there's anybody, certainly not that I've met, who would say, yeah, I'm all for less creativity. That sounds good. I'm for less choice as a consumer. That sounds great. So if you're a monopolizer, I don't know if that's what we'd call these people, but if you want there to be just one
Oh, I'm a
brand,
colonizer.
um, a colonizer.
You know where I'm going with
uh,
that.
yeah, yeah, if you want there to be just one brand, you're a colonizer. I just say, if you just want there to be one brand, then I don't think you're thinking really about the repercussions of that. Like I like a lot of brands out there. I don't want there to just be that.
Yeah.
I just don't. I like playing on PC. I like playing with my kids on Nintendo. I like playing, on PlayStation after dark because they're usually rated M. I like the choice that we get, and if we're gonna just have one thing, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's really not great. Now, yeah, there's a lot to that, but again, like if you think that's wonderful, go read a book.
Yeah.
Like right now, stop what you're doing. Well, finish the podcast and and then go to your local library and rent 1984 or something like that. Brave New World, and then come back and talk to me.
All right. So with that being said, man, go ahead and plug pixels.com, plug your Twitter, X, plug Gamelogica. Go ahead. Floor is yours, and then we'll close out.
All right, thanks, man. So again, Gamelogica is on YouTube. That's my big thing right now. We do have a secret project coming up that I can't reveal just yet, but I'm very excited for it. There's a lot falling into place, so keep an eye out for that. There's the pixels.com, the-pixels.com. We just got a new editor in chief. He's doing real well. We've got the Twitter. There's all kinds of, if you want to talk about anything, just at me on Twitter and we'll talk about anything.
Yeah.
Except for politics. I don't want to talk politics with you on Twitter.
No.
I just don't.
Don't do it.
I told the guy that recently, yeah, he was like, well, we realize it's libertarian. I was like, bye. There's a time and place and it's not on Twitter. That's my, but if you want to talk anything about video games, stuff like that, hit me up and we'll chat. But Mikel, I appreciate it again. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me on. This was a fun one.
Yeah.
Are all your episodes like as spicy? Because
Yeah.
like, man, I got uncomfortable just listening to us talk.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm like, I gotta do something to like stand out a little bit. So
Okay.
it's just one of the things I like to do. I'm like, yeah, we can be like what's that YouTuber, MKBHD, big tech YouTuber, very surface level. He's got a podcast. A lot of people love it. Nothing wrong with it. It's just I need some excitement. I need some cayenne pepper on this bland, entree I'm eating. So I like
Yeah,
to
yeah, I got
spice it up a little bit, have a little campfire here and there. Because I think
yeah,
people enjoy it. But
yeah,
yeah, it,
likewise.
it's always an honor having you on the show. We definitely got to do this again. And one of the things I really want to say before we go is I'm really happy seeing that there are more, and this is one thing I'm specifically happy about. There's more Hawaiian creators we're seeing. There's more Polynesian creators, and we're getting more of a platform. Although game companies, when you do games set in Hawaii, please work with some actual Hawaiians and locals. And if you're wondering why am I saying it like that, it's because that's technically how you're supposed to say it. But anyway,
There you go.
but yeah, it's just mind blowing that we're having games set out here, and both your Western and Japanese companies are just using it as a backdrop and not actually like. I don't know if you're into the Like a Dragon thing, but the whole twist is Ichiban Kasuga is actually part Hawaiian.
I didn't know that actually.
That's the
Yeah,
twist, and I'm just like,
that's the twist.
okay, so that's why y'all made him darker. Okay,
All
all
right.
right.
Yay, representation. We got it.
Anyways, but that is the episode of Decked Up, a gaming and tech podcast, and I'm putting on my face right now because I could go on a tirade about the stuff I see in the game industry, but I'm not because I want to protect some virgin ears on here. But anyways, again, thank you, Moses, for coming on the show. If y'all haven't already, make sure you go follow him on social media, sub to his YouTube channel, listen to the podcast, and all that good stuff. And with that being said, we're signing out. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Aloha and ahui ho.